Welcome to the Conscious Publicist Podcast, a space where thoughts become ideas to advocate for a more conscious human experience in the media. Our thoughts and ideas inspire action, and the most notable leaders and organizations have transformed thoughts and ideas into global initiatives that have impacted the lives of millions. My name is Ashley Graham, and as a woman-owned business founder and publicist, I guide leaders, visionaries, and creators in discovering their conscious media voice and methodologies that inspire connection, community, and impact through aligned media channels. In this podcast, we'll dive into public relations, thought leadership, business, and entrepreneurship, all through the lens of being a conscious human being. I'll take you behind the scenes into the habits, thoughts, and modalities that have helped leaders shift past paradigms of limiting beliefs, comparison, and self-doubt to show up for themselves to become the subject matter experts they were called to be. Subscribe to the show on Apple or Spotify and join us on this journey of awakening the conscious, enlightened leader within you. I walk away from my episodes here on the podcast feeling something shift in me, not just in the conversation, but in my body and in my understanding of what it means to be seen, to take up space, and to create environments, physical, energetic, and otherwise, that hold people in their fullest expression. Today's episode is one of those. My guest is someone I have followed for years, quietly admiring the way she moves in the world and the way that she sees beyond what's visible and creates from what's felt. Rachel Crawford is the founder and creative director of Tiger Vale, a holistic interior design studio based here in Southern California. She works with hospitality founders and visionary clients to build immersive environments where concept, strategy, and guest experience don't just coexist, they align. And what sets Rachel apart isn't just her 2 decades of experience or her certification in Feng Shui, or even her training as a Reiki master. It's the way she understands that a space is never just a space. It's an energetic imprint. It's a story, and it's a living, breathing extension of the people who inhabit it. She also hosts the Holistic Interior Design podcast, where she unpacks how intentional environments can shift not just how a room looks, but how a person feels, moves, connects, and remembers while being in that space. What I love most about this conversation today is that Rachel came in as a guest and ended up being a mirror. We talked about the voice. We talked about worthiness. We talked about the invisible things we leave behind in spaces and in ourselves, and what it takes to finally clear them and come home to who we're becoming. She is very much in her own season of emergence right now. And there is something really powerful about witnessing someone who does this depth of work for others while learning to receive it for herself. Pull up a chair, get comfortable, because this episode, I hope, will stay with you the same that it has stayed with me. This is going to be a very illuminating conversation today. What I love most about Rachel is she brings in spirituality and a little bit of the, I guess you would say, just ethereal embodiment to her work, which I love so much. So I cannot wait for her to speak her brilliance today. So to get us started, Rachel, asking you our $1 million question here on the podcast. What story and message are you looking to tell through your brilliance and your wisdom today?
I think for me, it's all about sharing your voice and your biggest expression of who you are, whether, that's in your space, the way you show up, the way you dress, the way you speak. But for me, finding voice is huge, and everybody has a voice and a story to tell. And I think giving permission and example of how to do that is empowering. So that's what I've got.
I love that. And the voice is very aligned with the conscious publicist. as a brand as a whole, but really what I bring forward here on the podcast and want to bring forward in the podcast. We are two people who are bringing our voices to the platform to have a very enlightening conversation about how to empower and inspire other people. And one of the greatest ways to do that is through the voice. Rachel and I talked about doing something really fun here on the podcast, which hasn't been done so far. Just for some context, one of the things that I have followed Rachel for years now is she does a daily tarot card pull and she shares it on her stories. And I think that is just a fun way to keep your followers and your community engaged, because not only do you, Rachel, you bring your face to the message and really speak to how that's resonating for you and how it resonates for other people. But for those who understand the magic of tarot, they also get some incitement. That's not even a word. They get insight for themselves, for their daily lives, and just what we might all be going through collectively as a community, because we are all connected. So one of the things we had talked about was for Rachel to do a tarot card pull for us here, and I will let her do that and then speak to the magic of our card today.
Okay, so today what I'm going to do is, I'm just shuffling my cards. And then I like to pull my cards from my left hand, which is my intuitive receiving side. And I read my cards right side up. So if you see me flip the card upside, that's just how I do it. If it comes in upside down, for me, it's just a way so that I don't have to think about, was it upside down? The overthinking. And I love that you mentioned the ethereal piece, because my chart is all air, some fire, and like a drop of water, and absolutely no earth.
I can only imagine the energies that you really tap into with that being your chart placements just as a whole.
That's pretty crazy. Okay, let's see what we've got. Knight of Cups. This is really beautiful. The Knights are a messenger. He's coming in with this beautiful goblet. And with the cup, that's going to represent artistic freedom, emotional being. The knight that's coming in, he is the most sort of charismatic, very art forward, very romantic. So it's got this very dreamy message or gift that's coming through. And what I'm seeing, or the message that I'm getting, is that your gift is your art. So thinking about how you can express yourself in the world, whatever medium that is. It doesn't need to be a painting on a canvas. It could be a million things. And it's him just coming in and saying your art is the gift and your expression is that as well. So it's just a really sweet, sweet, sweet card. I love that we pulled that.
And for everyone tuning in, because you can't see it visually, it was a hand holding a gold shallot on top of a diamond, which it's been a while since I've used the context of being a diamond or being found as a diamond in the earth as it pertains to your story, your message, or even being the go-to person for your specialty or where you can really own your brilliance. And so to speak a little bit, just what's coming through for me right now, the thought leadership journey will speak to that. When you're a thought leader and you're wanting to get visible, sometimes you have to go through this messy middle where it feels like you are under divine pressure, but you are getting molded and shaped into who you need to be to tell the story that you're meant to tell. And I feel that sets us up perfectly because you, Rachel, based off of our pre-conversation, you are very much going through that journey and that transformation right now yourself. And that's really what called me to ask you to be on the podcast, because you really, I'm sure, can tell a beautiful story about what this process is like since you're in it right now, of wanting to be visible and claiming that embodiment and seeking the right invitations and waiting for them to arrive. And it just seems that the invitations are being presented to you right now. So tell us a little bit about your story, both from this path of visibility, but then I also would love for you to speak again to the Feng Shui and the interior design and your artistry, because again, it was perfect for the card as well.
I know, it's this art piece. Yeah, so it all extends back to, I guess, childhood, right? So when I grew up, I was basically told that not that I don't have a voice, but I was never asked to share my voice. And it was just hushed and put in the corner. And it was just like, you don't speak unless you're spoken to, and you don't really have any worth in what you're saying. And I grew up in a childhood where my worth, I felt like, was diminished, and I got leftovers, and I was fed last, and I slept on the floor, I didn't have a bed. There's so many things that just made me feel not worthy. So like that for me is like the hardest thing, is the unworthiness, and being told as you're growing up and growing into this person that you're not really worth much. So that was difficult, right? And just being so shy. Like I was so deathly afraid to speak or say anything because I was scared of rocking the boat, or that I was going to do something wrong, like constantly walking on eggshells. My mother's boyfriend is what I want to say. He had things going on, and it's very abusive. And it was physically to my mom and emotionally for her and for me and for everyone growing up in that household. So it was really hard. But I knew that I had something to say. I knew that there was something inside of me that needed to be expressed. And I recall enrolling in my freshman year of high school. And I was like, I've got to get out of this shell. And so I enrolled myself into drama because I knew I was going to have to get on stage. I was going to have to act, and I was going to have to share my voice. So I consciously enrolled myself in that course, knowing that it was going to push me because I couldn't do it by myself. So in that course, I fell in love with theater, and that was my safe space. So there were times when we would have rehearsal for after-hour rehearsals and functions where I was getting up and I was in the theater at 5:30 in the morning because I wanted to escape my house. And I would stay there late at night. And I was making these environments that were so magical, and they connected with the team, and we created these productions. And for me, that was just so awe-inspiring to be able to build something out of literally nothing. We're building sets, we're painting, we're creating these worlds out of our imaginations and putting them into physical space. So that became my sacred space. That became the place that made me feel safe. So when I graduated from high school, I went through drama the whole 4 years and got on stage and did the things and learned how to basically embody these different characters. And that definitely set me up for success coming into my adulthood, because I could then get in front of people and I can speak and go into a character. My maiden last name is Little, and I was always the tiniest person in the class. So it was always Little Rachel. So I'm like putting Little Rachel off to the side and embodying this grown-up Rachel, or this empowered Rachel. So that really set a good foundation. And even going through that, like in high school, I became the communications director on the broadcast. So I was like on this broadcast, sharing it to the school. I really started to find my voice in that way that I never thought was possible. And then going to school for interior design, Feng Shui was a seed that was planted early on in my schooling. And when I became pregnant with my oldest son, who's 15 now, so this would have been in 2010, I just got this hit of like huge sort of awakening. Like I was always spiritual and always connected in that realm, but it just was deeper. I felt so connected to this baby that was growing inside of me, and I knew him. And I didn't know what I was having. I just knew that this child was there. And I remember him telling me his name, and it was just so distinct. I was like, okay, like I hear you like 1,000 times. And I wanted to reconnect with my ancestors. And then I wanted to have this natural birth. And I was looking into all these things. And then hypnobirthing was part of like my birthing process. There was all kinds of stuff that just started adding up. And so I became certified in classical feng shui after I was working with another designer. I had time to do that. And then I started learning about Reiki, became a Reiki master, dove into crystals and sound healing and oils and scents and plants, like all the things. But I was torn between these two worlds of interior design and the spiritual piece. And I figured a way to sort of marry them together. And feng shui was really that bridge, because it was tapping into the spiritual realm along with the physical space. And in that course, we learned how to space clear. And I learned that was a technique and there's actually a practice. And so that just made me go deeper into it. So now I fully integrate, whenever possible, feng shui, and I'll even do some Reiki in the homes in the way of like clearing. So all clear homes of past energy, entities, paranormal activity, and then also just blessings, like bringing in this energy into homes. And whenever I can get with a homeowner or a business owner that is fully embodying wanting to connect with the space, it's really, really cool to be able to do that. I've also done crystal grids in foundations where I connect with the homeowner or even the business owner of what's the intention here? And then we place the bagua map, correspond crystals to it. And then we place those crystals and the intentions into the foundation, pour the cement over it so it's encapsulated. We've done land healings. I went out to Ireland in 2017 with a shaman and my Feng Shui teacher, and we did beautiful geomancy work, which is like connecting with the land. When we did ceremony on sacred sites, and it was just like the most magical thing. So anytime I can do that with my clients, I am like all in on it. Oh, and then the story of me now. So, at the beginning of this year, I set an intention to be intentionally visible. I knew that I had to show myself more into this world and to be able to do more of these projects. And the way to do that was this visibility piece. So, at the beginning of this year, I set that intention. And then on the solar new year, Chinese solar new year, which is the beginning of the feng shui year, on February 4th, I was at a networking event and instantly met Gia, who was there, and we clicked. She's this business coach that helps you embody who you're wanting to become and elevating yourself so that you can match the vibration to the clientele and the projects that you're wanting to bring in. So we started working together the middle of February to really start finessing and chiseling this thing that I want to be visible in. What is my voice? How do I get there? And we're initially, I thought she wanted to work on the design firm, but she's like, no, I really want to work on you as a personal brand because that's why people are seeking you for design services. It's the lens that you're coming in at. And same thing, I'm in a course. It's a 90-day program. And same thing with that mentor. When I tell them the story of these different places and all the places I've designed, they're like, you need to share that lens and that perspective that you've got. So I'm in the middle of creating all this. We just did a photo shoot a couple of weeks ago and sharing those videos. And I have blocks. Like I have things I need to share, but I'm blocking myself. So I'm trying to figure out how do I break through those things. And with people like you, Ashley, who are seeing me and are reaching out, it's just giving me that push to be like, okay, people do want to know about this and they want to learn more and they're intrigued and excited. And I'm just like, as much as I have grown, I feel like there's so much more to grow into.
I feel you're in such a beautiful position, though. You touched upon blocks, which, again, nothing's coincidental when you tap into energy and just that knowing that we're supposed to be in this space together today. I was listening back to an old episode because I've been trying to repurpose, recycle content because there's so much magic that has lived in these episodes that I know that it just needs a new wave. And I was reflecting on a personal episode that I had done talking about my own blocks. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I feel that anybody who's trying to be visible or they feel the calling to be visible, they still go through their own blocks or areas of growth that they need to overcome, because it's not as simple as just being like, okay, I set this intention, I'm going to do the conscious aligned action. Now I have the opportunity. You're still very much a human being who is still working through your own things while that new chapter or that new identity is starting to take form. And I feel using the voice, especially the throat chakra, it takes a whole level of nurturing to create that safety, to be like, I am okay. I'm okay to take space. I am safe to take space. And here's how I want to take space. I've been a podcaster. I've been a writer. I've been X, Y, and Z for many years. I still have to tell myself mantras at night that I am safe to take up space. It is a natural evolution that is always a work in progress. So I would love to hear, outside of just wanting and feeling called to be visible, what are some of the blocks that have presented themselves to you? And what are some of the modalities or methods that you do to reaffirm and remind yourself that you are safe to take up space?
I was just experiencing that just now. I was sharing my story. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm talking too much. I'm taking up too much space." I was like freaking out inside. I'm like, "Oh my God, maybe I need to like pull back a little bit or shrink a little." Yeah, it's constant. So for me, it's acknowledging the voice and being like, "Yes, I hear you. I see you. I know you want to keep me safe, but it's okay. Like I can do this and I've done it before." It's looking back to the evidence. Okay, I've done it before. I've done hard things. Like I've gone through it. I've gone through the fire and I've come out. So it's like just the affirmations of reaffirming, just separating myself from the thoughts. So a lot of that too would be me going on a walk, getting out into nature, like physically getting out of a stuck and sterile space that I'm feeling constricted. It's pulling cards. I'll pull cards for clarity, especially like if I'm about to invest in something or I'm about to like move into the next chapter or whatever it is. Like when I got with the business coach, I was like, oh my God, like I'm freaking out. I pulled three cards. I'm like, just give me some insight. What do I need to know if I move forward on this? What am I looking at? Trying to calm the nerves a little bit. Those are the main things. If I can get to the ocean, get to the water, that's really beautiful. But it's getting out of my head because it's just all the stories that I'm telling myself. And it's so hard. So then I'm looking for evidence outside of myself, whatever that is, if it's a text from somebody or a message or a letter, or I'm just trying to get a different perspective.
I wanted to go back a little bit to your expertise
Okay.
because one of the things that I've always just been so intrigued about your work is more of what you were calling the grid work. And I would assume that you integrate some of the sacred geometry, or I
Mhm.
remember looking back a couple of years ago, you were working with sacred geometry with the crystal placements. And I just thought that was fantastic and fascinating because I had never really seen anybody do that work in that way. So, talking about some of the amazing projects that you've been a part of, I didn't know you've gone to Ireland and you were able to heal lands. What are some of the biggest breakthroughs and transformations that you've seen through your work, and maybe how you're wanting to do more of that in the future?
One of the properties that we did that crystal grid in is a homeowner that's here in Encinitas. And she had felt so disconnected from the property itself that even when she went up there, like during construction or prior to construction, she felt like she was an outsider. She was somebody visiting. She didn't feel like she could live there. She didn't feel worthy enough of the space. So when I had asked her, and I didn't know about any of this prior to until we started digging a little bit more, and I wanted her to do some practices. When I found out she was feeling this way, we went up there and did a land blessing. So we gathered a bunch of rocks that were already on the property and created this beautiful cairn, which is a rock formation. And I had her I wanted her to introduce herself and her family to the property so that the land could know what was going on because there's so many people that were up there. There's tractors and people hauling things away and dirt getting turned up and all this stuff. So the property is just like, what's happening? I'm getting torn up. I don't know what's happening, what's going on. So we created this Karen. She brought up her favorite wine, chocolate. I brought up some rice, some grains. She brought up her husband's family had almost like an orchard or a farm with berries, and they would make this berry jam every year. So she brought up like some berry jam, and she brought up her photo albums and games and pieces from the house that they were having to take down because the house was condemned and we were going to rebuild. And she shared with the property, "This is who I am. This is who we are. This is our intention for living here. This is how long we want to live here," and all the things. And we poured the wine over the Karen and the rice and the sugar and the chocolate. And we just gave all the gifts to the property. And then when it was time to do the grid, same sort of thing. She had another block. So I had her do a whole ritual the night before, getting her into a grounded space, clearing things out, writing out those blocks, and then the next morning being able to write her, again, intentions of what she wants from the home and what she was going to do and all the other things. And that next morning, she was able to do that. And then when we did the clearing on the foundation, then the next time, or we did this over several times, she read her letter out loud in front. We had a whole circle of us. So it was me, my business partner, the foreman on the project. His wife was there, his grandson was there, the homeowner was there. So we were in this beautiful circle and we just went around and shared what we were thankful for, what we were wanting the home to be, the intention setting. And then she read her letter out loud and she had a nice release. And we put that letter underneath the crystal generator. So it's encapsulated. And then with the grid, once I knew what her intentions were, I basically placed the Feng Shui Bagua map on top of the map of the property so that I could connect her intentions with the different areas of the home. So on the Feng Shui map, there's 9 different areas of your life that's on that map. So it's anywhere from like fame and reputation, travel and helpful people, knowledge and wisdom, relationships and marriage, health, what else? Like children, new beginnings, like all these things. So once I knew what that was, I could get corresponding crystals. And then I knew what parts of the house were public facing, what was private. And then I created a grid with those crystals corresponding all those sort of layers and elements together. And so that's what we did out there. And then she was able to do that. And we have a grid under the main house. There's a grid at the ADU. There's a separate property. And then there's also the pool house. So each one of those pieces have a grid that's dedicated to the intentions for each one of those properties.
That is so amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I'm so curious with your clients who have had you come and do that just intentional spiritual, but then the energetic component of it, have they been able to experience these unexplainable experiences that they attribute to the work that you've done?
I think there's stuff that's happening and they may not be totally conscious of. I know with the yoga deck, which is the property in Bankers Hill that we have 3 crystal grids under, the people that find out that I did that work are like just so, oh my gosh, I could feel it. I knew there was something going on. They share their story with me about how they feel in that space, which is really cool. And then there's other clients where we've done clearings of entities or spirits that were in the space that were affecting their kids, and to be able to separate that entity from the property and so that her daughter could basically reclaim her bedroom, reclaim her playhouse and her playroom. She was like 3 or 4 when this was going on. We didn't tell her like what was happening or what we were doing. I went in and I read what was going on. I communicated with the spirit and then I was able to release him from the space. And she doesn't know what is happening. I don't think she still knows now. I think she's 13 now or 12 or 13. But right after I did that, she went in and she was fine. And it was like nothing had happened. And it was like she was off to La La Land again, you know? So it was just, it's things like that that you can witness the difference for sure. And I've done stuff on properties where they wouldn't sell and having to clear and bless that and then get the property to move along. It's pretty cool.
I mean, that alone is like a very unique part that you were able to sense the spirit that wasn't able to move out of that space. Are there any other, maybe not similar experiences, but just experiences where you've been able to really tap into it? I guess I'm really curious to know, like, how did they know that there was a spirit in the space that was affecting?
Her daughter. Yeah, because when she was little, it started out slowly, but then it became more intrusive where she would point in certain corners and eventually she started freaking out. When she started freaking out and it started intruding into like her safety of her space, that's when it was like, okay, we need to get somebody in here to do something because she got scared and she would like when she would see the spirit, she would just freeze and not be herself, just be really conscious about what she was saying or what she was doing, or just really restricted her. So they knew something was going on because of the behavior that her daughter was experiencing.
Wow, you have me going back like 20 plus years into my childhood. And my having somebody to come into some of the spaces that we were living in would have done wonders for a child who has always
Just
been connected to the spirit presence. There was definitely many entities in one of the houses that I grew up in. And then through the years, even in my adult years, have had many visitations. And I would just lean into the practice of being like, you're not welcome here. Please leave.
and that's a lot of it too, is you basically have to be really firm with that entity or spirit or whatever it is, that this is your place and to reclaim it. And I've done it before where I've had a property where the homeowner literally couldn't move into the house that they just bought. They, whatever rate, they could not move in. And it was still, the person that was attached to the home was still alive. Like, they're still alive, they're still living, they sold the house, but they were so attached that they energetically could not leave, and I had to be super firm. I was burning herbs in that space, and I was like, "You have to go." Like, I was being really firm, and basically that herb spat back. It was like she spat back at me, and the spark like came out and I was like, "Oh, no, like, no, 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 no." It was hardcore. So then I was like, "Okay, smoke doesn't get you out. I'm using sound." So then I was doing sound with these chimes and doing it so hard to get her out of there. And when I showed up to the property, the vision that I was getting on this house was just like this sticky, almost bubble gummy, just stuck. So, like, visualizing peeling all that stuff off and getting her out of there. And then she was hiding. She would hide in these cabinets and cupboards. And I was basically chasing her around to be like, you don't belong here anymore. Like, you've sold the house, you've moved on. And so it took all that. And when I spoke to the real estate agent, he's like, "Oh my God, that's her energy. That's how she was. That's the person we were dealing with." It was just like, she keeps coming back. She sold it and she kept coming. She kept coming on site like it was her house. That's crazy.
So she energetically kept coming back to the house, not
Energetic.
physically.
Well, and physically.
Okay.
When they sold it, she would come on the property, like, during escrow and still come on the property and do whatever she was doing, but it's like, you can't be here anymore, and even when they sold it, she kept coming in, and her energetic imprint, that was also coming back.
Did you ever feel the reason why? And how is that? I think, again, this is like a conversation that's even expanding my mind here. And I've gone down some very deep rabbit holes.
Mm.
But have you in your practices, but then also just as a spiritual, intuitive person who does very deep energetic work, how do we leave parts of us behind in our energy and how can we reclaim that energy back? I think both for ourselves to
Mm.
move forward, but then also to not stand in the way energetically of other people who are trying to move
Yeah.
forward in their lives. That's a burning question that I have right now, but I think again, it would just be very enlightening for this conversation to really highlight we are constantly leaving parts of us everywhere.
Absolutely. It's the same thing with, like, old identities. It's like leaving parts of us, like, in clothing, in our furniture, in our past homes. I don't think the word is reminiscing, but we still are in this realm of we still live there, or that's still my life, or even with the partnership or a relationship, we're still in that relationship. It's like, no, that relationship ended 5 years ago, but you're still attached. Yesterday, I was cleaning out my studio and I had an old end table in there, a broken lamp. I'm like, why am I holding on to this stuff? Like, it's broken. That's the number one feng shui rule, not to have anything broken. And I was like, I was living in this studio for my work studio with this stuff in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this has to go. We have to clear it out. I think a lot of it's just being aware of, okay, what is it that we're attached to for whatever reason? We're still holding on to that pair of jeans that we're never going to wear again. It's being aware and then intentionally letting go and honoring what it was and being grateful for what we had with it at that time and then being okay with moving on into a new space.
It's really good reminders. An interesting topic here, which I think is still very much connected to the feng shui part of furniture and how our energy is still in things. But you talked about clothing, which actually this would be interesting to bridge a connection back to one of our pre-conversation topics where you did the photo shoot trying to put together this new personal brand and your coach, she went and picked out new clothing for you. And you were saying that she really stretched your comfort zones because you would say that they weren't items that you would have normally picked for yourself. And you were like, I don't know if this is going to represent me. But as the person from my lens receiving that and looking at that, I was like, wow, it
Oh,
was magnetic. And so I think, again, talking about just shedding the old identity, like that could also be style and how we dress, how we present ourselves when we're trying to make a magnetic impression for this new identity. Sometimes you really have to show up as that person before you're even ready. So let's
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about what that process looked like and was like for you.
Still in it too, so this is good. So when she was like, "We need to get clothing and we need to shop and for the photo shoot," and I was like, "Okay." She was pulling things that are way tailored than anything that I would wear because I like things to be a little bit more funky and edgy and have a little bit of something to it. And she was pulling like these power suits and these jackets, and they're tailored, like these shoulder pads and these slacks. And I was like, oh my God, my husband, he loves that tailored vibe. And I'm like on the other side. So I was like, oh my God, if he could only see what I'm pulling right now. It's just hilarious. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with it. And that's part of it too, of the let go, right? It's like she has a vision. She obviously knows what she's doing. I'm hiring her for a reason. I need to let her do her thing. I'm looking at also as my client. So like when a client hires me for design, they're hiring me for my eye, my expertise, my experience, like my vision. And I hate having a client come in and dilute what I've created because I put so much intention into what it was based on the intention that they set and their vision that they wanted to live. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to fully embody, try to be this client that's going to give them as much freedom and expression as possible. And so I let her pull the pieces and it came together. And I was really, really happy and excited with how it all turned out. And again, just having this look that I was not thinking about. And she's like, and we're going to straighten your hair because I've had my hair long and curls. She's like, anyone can do that. We're straightening this out. I was like, okay, whatever you want to do, we're going to do it.
I love it. Every single detail really showed through. I don't even know if you have shared any other content, but that
Yeah.
reel that you did was that first introduction to hello, this is me, this is who I am now, this is where I'm going. And I'm like, you caught my attention immediately.
Oh,
Immediately. So it's like, what is next? What is next now that you've set the intention, you want to be visible, you've got this new look. What does that look like for you? And what are some of the other things that you're hoping to call in this new identity or this, shift that you're in? Because what I love to do is I always like to leave a space for that on the podcast because you really never know what introductions could be made, what connections could be made, what opportunities could present themselves. So I love to create a intentional, dedicated space for that conversation.
so for me, it was really about, again, it's like elevating my vibration so that I can meet with the clientele and the projects that I really want to bring forward. So for me right now, like a dream client is a boutique hotel, like just to take this beautiful hotel and just amp it up to the nth degree of intention with the textiles and the finishes and the experience that we want to bring to the guest. And I'm also wanting to connect with founders of companies that are on the leading edge of their field. So, creating spaces for people that are doing something totally unique, beautiful experiences that have never been done before. I want to be the person that these visionaries and founders are wanting to collaborate to create something that's truly unique and special. Again, something that hasn't been done before. I'm also looking for opportunities for speaking engagements, getting on stages, sharing my story, being able to empower other people to find their voice. That to me, like those two sort of pillars, it's that speaking empowerment piece, and then also this creation of spaces that are experiences.
It's amazing. I feel that they are very, very close.
Oh,
I also feel we were talking about how it's the year of the fire horse.
yes.
And I just feel that what I've been able to feel energetically is when you declare what you want, it happens very quickly. And
Mhm.
so I wouldn't be surprised if come like May or June, you have not only the offer for this hotel, but you also have a speaking opportunity to talk about how you called that in. So
Yeah.
that'll be really exciting. I love this conversation for so many reasons. And I would love to just connect with you personally outside of the podcast as well, just to hear a little bit more about what your services look like more in this new stage and this new identity. One of the things that we're calling in is buying a house, and you have been active on my mind ever since I sent you that message. So It would be an honor to be able to have you come and clear and protect and bless our space in this next chapter.
Sure, I'm down anytime. I love it.
Amazing. Rachel, thank you so much for saying yes to my invitation and for sharing just the magic and the wisdom today.
Of course, of course. It was my honor to be here. And I thank you for witnessing me and inviting me on.